Get Gutsy episode number 116 with Natalie MacNeil on Conquer Your Year. Welcome to Get Gutsy. I'm your host, Jenny Fennick, and I am so excited to be on this journey with you. A cutting-edge show blending business and spirituality, Get Gutsy serves up a potent blend of stories, lessons, and tips to help you make a massive impact in the world through your soul's work and your inspired life. No more going it alone, no more excuses. The world needs more brave women saying yes to leadership. Are you with me? Good. Let's get gutsy now. Hey everybody, Jenny here. Welcome back to the show, or welcome to the show for the first time if this is your first time listening. Y'all, this is our final episode of 2016. We are going out with a bang, and we have a repeat guest. The first time we've had a repeat guest here on Get Gutsy. Her name is Natalie MacNeil. I know you know her, or you've heard of her. If you haven't, oh my gosh, get pumped because you're getting to meet a wonderful woman today. I had her on the show about a year ago to the day, and at that point we were celebrating her first book. Or not her first book, but her latest book. She's just a prolific media creator, but her book at that point, and now she's got a new one out. And so let me tell you about her. Let me just celebrate everybody for being here, part of this Get Gutsy journey, being a part of our final episode of 2016. It's been a wonderful ride, and we really are celebrating with a bang here with an amazing woman. So Natalie MacNeil is an Emmy award-winning media producer, the author of Conquer Your Year and the Conquer Kit. The Conquer Kit was her book from last year, which we had her on to celebrate that. Now it's Conquer Your Year. And she's the creator of SheTakesOnTheWorld.com, recognized by Forbes as a top 10 website for entrepreneurial women. Natalie is also an amazing yogi, very into mantra and meditation. We focused on that a lot with our last episode. And Natalie, I'm excited to see where we go with this one. Welcome back to Get Gutsy.
Yay! Thank you so much for having me back. It's a real honor, and I am very excited.
Yeah. So, okay, writing one book is a lot. So, how does one basically get two out of oneself and published by a big publisher, and all really in the course of a year?
2 right and 12 months.
Mm-hmm. It's like two babies in 12 months. Yeah. How does one do that?
Well, one does not recommend taking that route. It is definitely not for the faint of heart. Mm-hmm. And it took a lot to be able to do both. But look, with the Conquer Kit, that's the 12-month business planning workbook. Mm-hmm. The natural next step was for me to create something that broke it down into the week to week and the day to day, and taking that sprint process and putting it into a year-long planner. So I knew I wanted to create the planner, and we knew that the best time for that to come out would be immediately following the release of the Conquer Kit. So it made a lot of sense strategically, but it definitely added a lot of work to my plate. And again, it's not what I would recommend. It would have been nice to have a little bit more space in between, because as soon as Conquer Kit was out and released, I immediately had to dive right into this, but totally worth it. Totally worth it. And I can say that now that it is done and out in the world.
Yeah, absolutely. What were some of your biggest lessons learned over these last 12 months with doing something that very few have ever done?
I think this entire year for me has been absolutely packed. We have been taken places that I never thought that we would go. And it has been a year of really high highs and really low lows. Mm-hmm. And the high highs have been absolutely incredible. Lessons learned, I would say, are, always trust your intuition. Mm-hmm. Always. It never fails you. And a lot of the a lot of the low points in my year were also the result of following my intuition. I mean, moving my companies across the border, moving from Canada to the US, that was a really big move for me to make. And I left behind a whole life that I had built for myself, but I knew that that was the next step that I needed to take, and I trusted my intuition, and it was still really hard. And, trusting your intuition and living a life of alignment is not always easy. And I feel like oftentimes, people say, oh, but when you're in the flow and when everything is aligned, then, you can live with effortless ease and everything is like easy breezy and falls into place. And it's not always like that. Sometimes you get into alignment by going through some really difficult things. So that's been a big lesson for me to learn this year. And really trusting the process, trusting that the right people are going to show up. I've learned to ask for help a lot more this year. I've had so much on my plate. And I've had to rely on a lot of other people. I've had to deepen my relationships in a way that hasn't always been comfortable for me. I tend to lean a little bit more toward being introverted. I would say I'm an ambivert, like right on the fence, a little bit more introverted. And it's also always been very difficult for me to ask for help, but that's a big lesson that has come out of this year as well.
Yeah, I am so with you on that. I'm glad you shared that term ambivert. I too tend to trend more introvert, which I didn't realize growing up when I was young because I was pretty social and quote popular. I was like, oh, I'm just this extrovert. Yeah. I love being around people. But the way I would manage all that energy was I would numb out, with alcohol or, other things that I would find myself dabbling in or diving into. And what I learned as I've gotten older and wiser is I really have to watch the energy that I'm around because it's intense for me. That's why yoga has been such a gift. And the asking for help piece is huge. Do you find that is something that, because you coach and mentor lots of women entrepreneurs. Do you see that across the board with some of your students and clients struggling with asking for help as well? And if so, what's the root of that?
Absolutely. I work with so many women who have trouble asking for help and just standing in their own power to not even really ask, but to also demand that they be supported sometimes. And, I had a friend who earlier this year was going through some challenges in her home life. And it got to the point where she was like, I can't even ask for help anymore. I'm just going to need to demand it. Like I need to demand that this is what I need to be a good wife and to be a good mom and to be a good business owner. And I just can't take it anymore the way that it is. And I really supported her in that. I was like, yeah, that is amazing that you're willing to take that step and speak up and use your voice and say, I need this. Like, this isn't me saying, this would be nice. This is me saying, this is exactly what I need. So I've been a lot clearer this year with telling people what I need, not just saying, oh, it would be really nice if you could do this for me, especially when it comes to like team members or, people in my immediate orbit. There have been times where in moving the company, in moving, I pretty much moved twice this year where I just had to say for the next 2 weeks, like, I need this, and this because I have all of this on my plate. And if one more thing comes onto my plate, like, I'm going to lose my mind. Right. So this is what I need. And that's been a really big lesson, but absolutely it's something that I think a lot of women really struggle with.
Yeah, I've seen that too. And it's funny on the, the team piece and just not even like the asking piece, but just saying, this is what I need. I've caught myself several times this year as I've moved into other levels with team support and growing, and it's uncomfortable at times because it's like, oh, you gotta ask for more help, and you've got to invest more resources in getting that help and work through any personality shifts or whatever that comes up on the journey. But I've caught myself when assigning tasks, for instance, we'll use like Asana as the project management tool, and we also started using Slack this year, which I hadn't yet used. And I caught myself when asking for help, essentially, like falling into the quote asking part, like, can you please blah blah blah, and I'm like, why am I saying can you please? It's more please handle X. It's not like, can you call that? Would it be okay with you if you did this? And so I feel like there's so much of that like tied into a lot of women, is that we're literally continuously, asking that permission piece when it's, why can't we just come into the, hey, I need you to go do X. Can you handle, or just please handle that. Please handle that. And I think it's just an energetic shift that I want our listeners to take in, that it really does start with us. And where are we getting these messages from that we're always having to ask permission, that somebody is going to want to say no to us, and that we just really need to shoulder that load. I love where if it was your friend who realized, this is critical for me. It's not even like it would be nice, but it's essential. Like if I don't have this, a piece of me dies, or I just can't function in this ecosystem any longer. It's huge.
Yeah, exactly. And my friend Laura Roeder has always, she's always said it's your call. Like your call has been this big shift in her business. And it's just two simple words, but with the people around her, with team members, she just learned to put the right people in place for the right things. And then, say it is your call. Like this is something that you have ownership over. Don't come to me for this particular piece. You make that call. And I think that that's also a really important thing for us to keep in mind.
And that we have the right people on the team where we can do that, where we can have faith that they're going to make a smart call. It might not be the same call you would make, but it's still a wise call.
Exactly. And not everyone is going to do everything exactly the way that you want it done. It's not going to happen. And I see this all the time as well. Growing up, my aunt would hate that I'm telling this story right now, but she's not going to hear this. Awesome. She would always get annoyed about us cleaning up a certain way. It wasn't the way that she would do it. If we were doing a chore, or if we were, cleaning up the kitchen or the floor, she would just get so annoyed that it wasn't the way that she would do it. And I was like, just chill out. Like, you don't have to do it. So just like sit back, relax, enjoy. And I think that that's another thing. We just need to release our control over those little details. And someone else may not do it the way that you would do it. And that is okay. We all do things differently. If it's getting done and getting done well, that's what really matters. And you really need to learn how to just surrender that control if you're going to, especially if you're going to build a successful business. And I know that there are probably a lot of entrepreneurs listening.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that whole idea that you can't do it alone. So you made a big decision, as you've alluded to in this conversation, that you moved your company from Canada to the United States, and you went from Canada to New York. Yes, which move number one. Okay, yes. And so you hunkered down there for a period of time, and then you eventually made the decision to, it seems like, move home base to LA. Walk us through that process, and how you got to where you got to, and what were the gorgeous discoveries and the challenges you encountered along the way.
So it all starts really a few years ago when I was starting to get this vision that I really needed to make that move, that the city that I was in was not the best place for me to be for the next level of my growth. And I was feeling like a tree that was planted in a small pot in a living room is the best way that I can describe it. Like, you can have a tree in a pot and it will root to the depth of the pot, and it'll stay alive. It's fine. Give it some water, give it some sunshine. It's fine in the pot, but it's not going to reach its fullest potential unless you repot it into a bigger pot and a bigger pot. And then eventually outside so that its roots have that limitless amount of space to expand so that it can grow into all its seedling was perfectly programmed to be. And when I really leaned into what I was feeling like a small pot in a living room. And I knew that I had to be in a bigger city. I had to be in a bigger market. And yet I had built a life. I had a beautiful home. My partner and I had, built this life, and my businesses were there. And it was very challenging to just admit to myself that I really, really needed to make that move. It was a very expensive decision to make. I had a lot of business success and had accumulated some wealth, and I had to invest a lot of what I had earned into actually moving and doing that. And that was a really scary decision to make, but I knew that it was my next best step. I heard that so loud and clear. And the process of moving first to New York is a city that I absolutely love. New York is also only a 45-minute flight to home base in Toronto. So it made a lot of sense for that initial move.
Yeah.
And I don't love winter, so that was part of it. And I just, while traveling through the US, just making sure that I was planting myself in the right place, especially because of the business. I had been out in LA doing some filming at the YouTube studios, and I found myself on this road called Runway. And I had this deep down feeling like there was something there. And I pulled over and I just kind of like walked around, and I was like, oh, I feel like I'm supposed to live here. Like, I didn't think I would end up living in LA ever, but there's something here. And so I got on the plane and I went to, I ended up going to Sedona after that for a few days, and I worked with a shaman. And one of the things that, we called in was for this perfect home to show up, for this perfect space to show up that would be really grounding for me, that would have like everything I wanted. And we like wrote down everything that I wanted. 11 minutes after leaving that session, I got an email from an independent housing site that I'm subscribed to about a home on Runway Road.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
It was so crazy. And when I get signs, like, I really trust them. So I flew back to LA right away, and they said, you can move in tomorrow. I saw the place, and I knew that that's where I needed to be. And so I just trusted that, and I went with it. And again, it was very scary, and it's so much further away from Toronto and from that home base for me, but I just knew there was something here for me, and here I am.
Oh, I love it.
It was exhausting. It was, it really brings up so many different things, especially pieces of your identity when you make a big move like that. And I'm really close to my family and had some really close friends that I was leaving behind. And that was just really hard for me, harder than I even thought it was going to be. And, when I first got out here, first of all, I moved with a suitcase. So I moved in with one suitcase and a yoga mat. I didn't have furniture or anything. I slept on a yoga mat for the first few nights while I was waiting for a mat
You're in
to
Shavasana.
arrive.
It was like a
totally
ongoing Shavasana.
I was ongoing Shavasana and like bawling my eyes out for 3 days straight.
Like what did I just do?
All I could do was like curl up on the floor on a yoga mat and cry. And, I'm not a very emotional person. And that just brought up so many things for me, because it felt like that was really the closing of an entire chapter of my life. It really felt like I was at this new beginning. And whenever there's a new beginning in your life, whenever you expand, so much in a short period of time, or you choose a different path in your life, there is a period where there's a mourning for what you've lost and for what you've left behind. And I had to just go through that process. And it feels good on the other side, but it's come with a lot of adjustments. It's the beginning of a brand new story and chapter.
Absolutely. So what did you do with your New York City apartment? Did you have to kind of close that out? How did you rectify that detail?
Yeah, so that was a short-term rental anyway. So I didn't have a long-term lease on that. So that kind of like all worked itself out. And I will go between LA and New York. So I'll keep LA as the main base, but still spend a whole lot of time back in New York. So I'm not completely done with New York, but I really love New York in the spring and in the fall.
Yeah.
And I can do without the winters on the East Coast. I'm quite happy having some snow at Christmas and then, being in sunshine
the rest of the winter. Exactly. So you're
I'm just healthier that way, Jenny.
Yeah.
Like I have found that even being out in LA, I'm so much healthier than I was on the East Coast and back in Canada because I hate being out in the cold. And I would just hibernate for the winters. I mean, I would usually write a book, so that's good. I was very productive in the snowy winters because I didn't want to do anything except sit in front of my fireplace, like with a blanket and just work all day and night. But I would always break my routine. Like I didn't want to get up early and go to the gym, and I just didn't like leaving the house very much. So I find it really healthy here, and I haven't broke my routine really since I've been here. Like I swim every morning. There's a yoga studio and daily yoga at the complex that I live in. So
nice.
I get to go to my yoga class, and everything's right here. There's like a spin studio and spin classes right here in my complex. So
perfect.
It's great for a busy entrepreneur, and I'm a lot healthier out here.
And that's huge. You found the place where you need to plant yourself, right? Where you can most thrive. You use that tree analogy, and you were in that, pot in a living room, and then you had to figure out, where can I be planted in the ground so I can, grow into all I was designed to be. And I think that's really wise, and I want our listeners to take that in with your environment. It's so crucial. I grew up in the South, Natalie. I grew up in Georgia and Florida, so I was used to that warm weather. And it's funny because now I live in like a snowy winter wonderland. I'm in. Now, my saving grace is I am 20 minutes away from Kripalu, which you may know of, And so I spend a good amount of time there. But what happened for me last winter, which because I was like you, I was like, I don't do this winter thing very well. I got to just be inside. And I'm really into yoga. But what I find is if yoga is awesome, but it's usually inside. I do need to be outside. And so last year I just said, okay, this is where my family, we have planted ourselves. I have 3 kids, husband, and they're all obsessed with the snow. They think the snow is the coolest thing ever. my husband can't be in like too much heat. He like dies and he starts like can't breathe. And so I said, okay, I got to do this. I'm going to take one for the team. And what can I do to make this easier? And so I discovered long underwear last year. And so I'm constantly wearing layers. And just today I went out, dropped one of my sons off at school, and I walked. It was an hour, and I literally have like my big snow boots on, which are good for walking, and layers and layers in my jacket and my hat, and I'm listening to my inspirational podcast, and I'm going. But that was really a pact I made with myself last year of, this is where we are right now, and how can I make this more enjoyable? How can I prepare for the elements? And so, for our listeners, some of y'all do need to move. You do need to go someplace else or take vacations, like regularly go places. For me, Natalie, I planned to lead a retreat in Costa Rica the second week in January. So that was another way I could kind of like counteract winter. Like, okay, I'm going to do this, but I gotta have some like things for myself so I don't lose my mind like you. And, so wherever you are, dear listener, either decide that 2017 is going to be the year that you do move, or that you take a vacation to someplace warm when it's cold, or someplace cold when it's warm and you need that in your life, or that you say, how can I better prepare for the environment that I'm in, and really, work with those energies. I think that's so important. So you were doing all these moves while you're birthing these books, and while you also birthed another business, right? Could you tell us about your business, Soul Seconds?
Yeah, so soulseconds.com is a one-stop shop for meditations that are specifically designed for busy people, which like hands up if you're a busy person. I'm sure most people listening to the Get Gutsy podcast would say that they're pretty busy. So most of the meditations on Soul Seconds are 120 seconds or less. So a lot of them are just around the 1 minute point, because I don't believe that you need to carve out 20 or 30 minutes a day to have a regular meditation practice. I would rather you take 1 minute to do rhythmic breathing or to do a mudra and clear your mind than to not do it at all. And you can still experience a lot of shifts without the pressure of, oh, I have to do this for 30 minutes or else it's not worth doing. So I love these bite-sized meditations, and that's the library that you'll find on Soul Seconds. So it's a whole meditation library. Those are all free meditations right now. I know that you'll love them, especially if you're someone who feels like they want to have a meditation routine, but they just don't feel like they have the time for, 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes in the evening. These are short and sweet.
Bite-sized nuggets, soulseconds.com. That's beautiful. And so they're all free right now to
They
access. And what's the grander vision for that particular business? Do you have a
we have
of where that's going? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have a product line coming out in 2017. So that's what we're working on right now. And we have a few strategic partnerships that we're working on. But Soul Seconds really started because it's something that I needed for myself, and it's something that a lot of our Conquer Club members and our She Takes on the World community was asking for. They're like, whenever we're with you or we're at one of your events, you give us all these amazing little meditations or mudras we can do. Like, how do we access those when we're not with you? So I had slowly recorded this whole library, and I wanted to put it up. And I'm also a big believer when you're building a business that it's important to build a list around that first. It's important to build that community first. So that's what we've been doing in 2016 and getting a lot of great feedback, which will really point us in the direction that we're going to move in the future. But the product lines are the next big thing we'll be working on there.
Okay, that's awesome. Everybody go check it out, soulseconds.com. I love that you did it very short, because I think for many of us, it's like, especially when we used to have more time, when you used to have more, like when I trained to become a yoga teacher, I didn't have any kids. I wasn't yet like a full-blown entrepreneur like I am now. I was finding my way. For me, training to become that teacher was my exodus out of my New York City corporate executive life. And so I had a lot of time on my hands, like a lot, which almost too much. And I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do with all this open time? But I had a lot of time to meditate, and it was fabulous, And then when you move into other realms, other chapters, and your life becomes fuller, you almost feel like, well, if I don't have, like you said, 20 or 30 minutes, then it doesn't count. But in fact, it does. Just that,
it does,
right?
It does. I'm all about guilt-free living. You don't want to have a meditation practice that makes you feel guilty all the time because you're not giving it enough attention or you're not doing it consistently. And I feel like this is really the answer. And, you can get to a place where meditation is just your entire life, where you can mindfully walk down the street, where you are basically living in a state of meditation all the time, which is kind of what I feel I'm at right now. And people always say, well, how often are you meditating? Like, what do you do in the morning? And, I really do feel like I just am in meditation all the time now. And I don't even have to force it anymore. Like, I just kind of bless people as I walk down the street, and, I'm looking at people and I'm like, oh, I hope that you are blessed today, and like, oh, I wish you peace, I wish you happiness, and I'm like silently giving those little gifts to people even as I'm walking, and it's just a habit now. And every once in a while I'll catch myself doing it, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool. I don't even realize I'm doing it.
But your life has become a meditation, your business has become a meditation. That is the practice. And that's, I think that for those of us who are into yoga, into that that whole realm, which, for our listeners who aren't yet, who think that yoga is just the poses, right? The asanas. It's so much more than that. And I love having conversations with fellow yogis because it's like we speak the same language. And part of my mission with this podcast has been to introduce some of these concepts to, spiritual entrepreneurs who may have not dipped into that yet. To think, well, I can't meditate, or I've never been to a yoga class, so I can't do that. To say, no, there's such a huge wealth of inspiration and knowledge and tools and teachers who are out there. Have you done anything this year, Natalie, in 2016? I know you have so much wisdom within you already, but I know that you're always wanting to kind of see what's out there for you to go deeper into. But any kind of yogic experiences that you had with teachers or trainings that you could tell us about?
Yeah, I guess my biggest one has been that I've taken a couple trips to Sedona this year, and that's really become a place for me where I can go and ground. And I love spending time in the Boynton Canyon. And there's this resort I love called Enchantment, and there's a crystal grotto in this resort that is just such a special place for me now. And just being in Boynton Canyon, it almost makes you feel like you're in a womb. It really like cradles you. And I just can't say enough about the power of that place and the impact that it's had on my life. So that's where I've been going for like little yoga retreats and to work with a shaman there. And it's become my place. So I think I'll keep on going back there. And that's been the biggest thing that I've done this past year. At the end of every quarter, because I do usually these quarterly sprints, which is how I've structured the planner, Conquer Your Year. And at the end of every quarter, I usually go somewhere or do something to just recharge.
Okay.
I think that's so key. So Sedona has been twice for me this year, that place that I've gone. And then I had the opportunity to go to Necker Island this year as well, which was actually a very spiritual experience. And the energy there is just unlike anything I have felt. It's very special. So that was really powerful for me as well. And then otherwise, because of the move and everything, I didn't get a lot of international travel in. As you know, I've traveled so much in the last 10 years, and I've been to about 100 countries now. So I'm used to doing a lot more international travel and didn't get to do that this year, but I got my little getaways to charge.
You did. And I think you were finding home, and that's our home right now, where you need to be right now. And that takes a lot of energy. So I want to give you credit for that. That's a huge
spiritual journey in and of itself.
Finding home, especially for those of us who were so used to travel. Sometimes the travel, because I'm like that too, I was so designed to travel. I'm like, I want to go see places. I got to go here and there. And for me, hunkering down and finding home, that was scary. Like what is that? What does that mean? And when I, went on that quest myself, it takes a great amount of courage to say, hey, yeah, this is where I want to be. This is where I want to plant myself. On the Necker Island piece, for those of y'all who don't know, that's Richard Branson's island. Didn't you play a prank on him? He's an infamous prankster. What was that all about, Natalie?
So my business BFF and I were on Necker Island together, and Richard plays a lot of pranks on people, but not a lot of people like to prank him back because I think they just fear his wrath. He's played some pretty epic pranks. So we dressed up as lemurs and we hid in the bushes by where he goes down for his tennis match in the morning. He goes down to tennis at 6:30 in the morning every single morning. So we were hiding in the bushes with water balloons, and he came down in his golf cart. We jumped out of the forest in these lemur costumes and water ballooned him, and he thought it was great. He laughed, and we were invited back, so that's good.
That took some guts, girl.
We were memorable. And there's a great photo of it, and it was good fun. And I'm sure we were invited back because he's already plotting
You just come back.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like something's going to happen when I go back.
Oh my gosh, that's so rad. That's so rad. Oh, I love that. What a great visual, and good for you for going for it. So tell us some of the key, just some key nuggets that we can chew on from Conquer Your Year, as you are our finale episode of 2016. You know, our listeners are closing out this year, moving into 2017. We've got this fresh year ahead of us. Like, nothing has been written about 2017 yet. How can the Get Gutsy Galaxy conquer our year?
This is one of my favorite questions. So there's a few things that I want everybody to keep in mind for closing out 2016 and also as we start a new year. First, I think it's important to have some sort of ritual to release the year that has passed. 2016 was a big transition year, not just for a lot of people, but with a lot of, if you believe at all in astrology or numerology, a lot of those forecasts were that this was going to be a big transition year. And I feel like there's a lot of people who felt that this year. And I think it's important at the end of a year to look back on what went right and what went wrong and what you would maybe do differently and what you're really grateful for and, what pushed you outside of your comfort zone and what are the things that you're most proud of? Mm-hmm. Who are the people you've met that have made a big impact on your life? Sit and reflect on all of those things and then allow the year that is past to slip away, be grateful for it, but don't hang on so tight to it as we go into a new year. Don't dwell too much on the things that didn't happen or that you really, really wanted that sort of didn't fall into place for you. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's always a big part of my ritual in starting a new year. Mm-hmm. And then, one of the things that I love to do this time of year is sit down and plan. And that's why I had done the Conquer Kit business planning workbook. And beyond the planning, I think a lot of us are really good at planning as entrepreneurs. We love creating that bigger vision and we get really excited about the goals that we want to take on. Mm-hmm. And then we get stuck on the execution part, which is where Conquer Your Year comes in. So Conquer Your Year takes your big goals and helps you break them down into milestones and tasks, and it helps you break it down into sprints for the year. And I think breaking your year up into sprints is one of the most powerful ways that you can work. Mm-hmm. And then instead of having a calendar day-to-day, this is a planner that gives you a day-to-day priority list. Mm-hmm. And a space to manage your projects. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really key. Our priority list is different from a to-do list. Our to-do lists are probably never ending. Like, I don't know about you, but every time I cross one thing off my to-do list, I add 3 more things. Yeah. So what's important is that I have this priority list of the things that every single day I need to do to drive a goal forward. And then, when I'm planning a new year, I'm always looking at the first quarter. This is why I love working in sprints. I look at, okay, for the next 12 weeks, what do I need to do? And then I break that goal into every little task that I can possibly imagine. Mm-hmm. And I get that into a project management system like Asana. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of people fail to reach their goals because they don't know how to task something out.
Right.
In a detailed enough way that allows you to actually stay accountable. So here's actually a really great example from a client I was working with. She said, okay, so one of my tasks is going to be to create an email series for my list. That was the task. And I was like, okay, so let me tell you about the tasks that are associated with one of the email campaigns that we're doing for our list. And that was, the tasks for that was outline email 1, outline email 2, outline email 3, and so on and so on. Draft email 1, draft email 2, draft email 3, and then final version of 1, 2, and 3. Collecting research, creating those stories, those are all separate tasks. The task is not create an email sequence, because if you sit down to create an email sequence, you can't do that in an afternoon, most likely. Most of us take a long time to do something like that. That's going to be like a longer nurture campaign.
Right.
So you need to break it down into all those little tasks so that you can sit down and maybe do 2 of those tasks at a time. And, some quarters, if we're doing a big launch or we have a really big project, we might have 1,000 different tasks for my team and I to conquer in that quarter. And, it all gets done little by little. But I think one of the biggest mistakes people make when they set those bigger picture goals is that they don't break them down into small enough steps. And I think that will be a big shift and a game changer for a lot of our listeners.
Small enough steps. How do you not get overwhelmed by the tasks, like the number? Because we recently encountered that where, by the time this is airing, our launch is wrapped up. I have a coaching school, and we train light worker leaders to become coaches. And I had a great, really a project manager, a launch manager on the team. And I mean, in the past, I kind of was just doing a lot of it myself. I had support, but not at that level. And as we really got every single task, I mean, I almost would get into like panic attack mode. I'm like, oh my God, there's like so many tasks, and they weren't all for me, but just the sheer number of those sometimes honestly felt overwhelming. Like it's kind of like how I felt when I was pregnant with my first child. And I remember I was maybe like 10 or 11 weeks along, and I saw this woman who was like 9 months pregnant. Literally, I was at this event, and I was like, I got so far ahead of myself going, how am I ever going to get there? Like, how is my body going to stretch that big? How am I going to grow a baby? I've never done this before. And I literally fainted. That was the only time I did. I fainted. I had what's called a vasovagal response. I had to get whisked off to the emergency room. Luckily, everyone was fine. And it was the time in a pregnancy where that can happen because your blood pressure is going through shifts and whatever. But I noticed that, that is something that I have inside of me, where if I see, oh, wow, look at all the stuff that, must get done for this task or this project to come to fruition. And then my brain will go into how are we ever going to pull all that off? And so do you have any insights on maybe how you handle that, or how you coach your team around kind of just staying the course and taking it, bit by bit, step by step?
Yes, absolutely. So for me, I actually feel very at peace once something is tasked out. And I feel that way because I know what we have to do. It feels like we know all the steps. The road before us is very clear. And I think it can definitely be intimidating when you're at the beginning of that journey. I always get most anxious at the beginning, whereas when I'm partway through it, even if we have 1,000 tasks and we've done, 80 of them and there's still so many more to go, I'm like, okay, we're on a roll. We're doing this. It's good. It's always laying that first brick and not being able to see that, okay, this is going to be a house. There's going to be a lot more work involved before the house is built, but I'm going to lay that first brick. And so I actually think for a lot of people, you'll have that inner peace knowing that you have it tasked out. At least that's the experience that I've had with a lot of entrepreneurs that I've worked with as well. And then the other part of it is setting your rewards, setting little milestones along the way. So if we're working on a launch, which might be a sprint that spans 3/4 of our year, it's really important along the way to have little moments where it's like, okay, we can breathe. So, a week where the whole team is off in the summer and nobody has to worry about any tasks. Or for me, having those days like every few weeks where I might take a Friday off to just unwind and maybe go for a massage or something like that. So I think it's important to have these rewards for yourself along the way. And I find that really helps, like knowing, okay, if we can get through the next 20 tasks, this is how I'm going to celebrate. Good. And I never used to celebrate anything along the way. And now that I do, it not only makes me feel a lot better about my progress, but there's also a sense of gratitude there that I didn't have before.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. The rewards, the milestones, and just seeing that it's been tasked out and finding some peace in that. So I'm going to practice that in 2017 and really just embody a new way of leading and growing this business. So I appreciate that piece of wisdom that you shared. Where can our listeners get the book, Natalie?
Yeah, you can get the book at conqueryouryear.com. So it's all broken into sprints for you, and the weekly and daily layouts are not just about business, but they're also about your overall health and well-being. So, there's space to track your water intake every day. Water is directly related to your productivity and your ability to function and to stay focused. There's a space for daily habit. Maybe that habit will be to do one of the Soul Seconds meditations every day. There's a lot of space for your personal life as well. So I really believe that business growth and personal growth go hand in hand, and that's definitely reflected in this planner. So conqueryouryear.com, and I'm also giving away a free workshop valued at $197 when you purchase the planner, which is, I want to say it's like under $15 on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and wherever books are sold. So it is an amazing, amazing value.
Perfect. And they can get all the details on that on conqueryouryear.com.
Yes.
All right, y'all. You know what to do. Go get it. Go get it. Well, Natalie, since you are our return guest, I asked you this for your episode a year ago. You've made a lot of gutsy moves over this past year, and I'm going to ask you our magical finale question yet again. What is the gutsiest move you've made this year? Let's just break it down to 2016. And how is it inspiring your life and work today?
So I talked a lot about my move. So I won't say the move again, although the move was definitely one of the gutsiest things that I've done this year. And
plural,
the other thing,
2 moves.
2 moves. And the other thing for me that took a lot of courage this year was I walked away from a long-term relationship. And that was something that took a lot of courage, and something that was also one of the hardest decisions I have ever made in my life. We had been together for 13 years, and he is amazing and has been really supportive of my entrepreneurial journey. And yet I knew that it wasn't working the way it needed to be working anymore. And the move was also a big part of that as well, because he was in Canada, and it just wasn't working, and it was really hard to walk away from that, even though I knew that that was the thing that I needed to do. And so that was the other really gutsy move that I had to make this year. And, in Cheryl Strayed's book, Brave Enough, she starts the book by saying that you have to be brave enough to break your own heart sometimes. And I feel like I broke my own heart quite a few times this year, from leaving the life that I had built for myself, leaving a relationship, leaving my home. And I think that we're all called to do that sometimes because of what's waiting for us. And even though it's been really challenging, I just trust that because I followed my intuition as hard as it was sometimes to do that there's a really beautiful future waiting for me that's beyond what I even have imagined for myself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The universe, what the universe has in store is so much grander than what we can conjure up with our rational minds. And so I want to honor and acknowledge your decision. I know that must not have been easy. I look back at my, prior relationships before meeting my husband, and even those breakups were breakups just suck, all around. I don't care what the circumstances are, they're just hard because you gotta change your friendships and who you call immediately, and it's like changing a habit. And 13 years is a long time.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
And look at you now. I feel like LA is such a perfect place for you at this stage in your life. I appreciate you being here. Your journey is quite spectacular. I know your book is going to touch so many lives, and I know our listeners are going to just run out to go grab it, y'all. ConquerYourYear.com. That's where you can find it. You can find Natalie on just about every social media channel. You're super plugged in. You're like a media maven.
Yes, I try.
And I'm sure you've got future...
I love connecting to people.
Yeah, and future awards in your future. Now you're living in Emmy land and Oscar land.
Yeah, I always joke with everyone here that, oh, you don't have an Emmy? I thought everybody here has an Emmy. Everybody here has an Oscar or something.
Yeah, it's an ideal spot for you. So keep on doing your work. I look forward to seeing what you create in 2017 and beyond. Real quick, and then we will end. You'll be proud. I'm actually heading to the motherland. I am going to India in 2017. I have never been there, and that nudge, that inkling, I've known for quite some time that I would get there. And 2017 is my year. I'm turning 40, and it just feels very profound.
Perfect.
Yeah, a girlfriend who I've known for forever. She's an entrepreneur. We also trained to become yoga teachers separately, but we're kind of like sisters from other parents, and we're going together. So that is my kind of yogic quest in this coming year. I have no idea what it's going to open up for me, and that's the amazing part. You got to follow that.
That's so beautiful.
Yeah.
I love it.
So I'll let you know what I discover for sure. Everybody, thanks for being here. Happy end of 2016. Let's welcome in 2017 with a bang. You just were hanging out with Natalie MacNeil and Jenny. I love you all. I am sending you so much love, light, and faith as you get gutsy. I will see you next time.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Get Gutsy with Jenny Fennig. Gutsy leaders unite and ignite.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Get Gutsy as much as I enjoyed creating it for you. Are you responsible for leading and growing your spiritual business? If so, I have a free tool for you that will help you spread your message like wildfire. It's called the Sacred Marketing Puzzle, and it's a one-page PDF guide that simplifies the often mysterious and confusing world of marketing. When you use sacred marketing tools to amplify your message, you'll provide huge value to your tribe and grow your business. What are you waiting for? Go to jennyfennig.com/puzzle to get yours instantly. That's jennyfennig.com/puzzle. Gutsy leaders, unite.